Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to another episode of Sondik and Mengel. The NFL draft is underway. Finally, some real life sports happening. Real one was completed Thursday with Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow being taken first overall to the surprise of absolutely no one. Besides the Bengals, there are other teams that used the first round to get their futures moving in the right direction. Granty, which teams won last night?
Well, first of all, it was a pretty exciting night. It was great to have some new content back on our TVs again. And to me, the biggest winner was probably not most people's biggest winner, but it's got to be the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay down there. I thought the last few days, I'm gonna cheat a bit and count the last few days. Getting Gronk, that's the real big winner move here. They already had Howard and Brait, but you go out and get superstar tight end Rob Gronkowski out of retirement to come play with his buddy Tom Brady. There's no win bigger than that. And then probably the best or second best offensive lineman in the draft falls all the way down to them. And then they trade up one spot to snag him. I think that was a great pick. You got to keep Tom Brady upright if he's going to be able to use all those weapons. So taking Wirfs at that point, I thought was just a great pick for them and a bad sign for the rest of the NFC, because if Tom Brady is upright, he's going to be able to hit his targets. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the team that they made the trade to get worse for. I'm gonna go with the Niners. I think the idea of trading down to get Javon Kinlaw, like we've seen what that guy can do, and I'm also people are they're not giving the Niners enough credit for the receiver they took because it's a receiver heavy field draft in first round, obviously. So I think the Niners, I think they're in a great position to get back to the Super Bowl. They're as deep as any NFC team on both sides of the ball. So I think this trading down to get Kinlaw, whether it's one choice or not, I feel like it's a great move at 14.
Yeah, I was a lot happier, or their second pick, Ayuk out of Arizona State. I thought that was the better pick of the two for them. And I mean, they definitely weren't going to take him at 13, so it made sense to trade back at least one spot. Uh, the the Kinlaw pick makes sense. They're replacing DeForest Buckner. I just I worry a bit about him with the lack of production towards the back end of the season. He had 5 sacks in his first 6 games and then won the rest of the season. That's a little bit of a red flag to me, but they definitely weren't a loser last night.
That's the thing, weeding out bad tendencies. Because you're right, he didn't have a great second half of the season. I just think for the long term, he doesn't have to be like the only playmaker on a defense. As we've seen other guys, they get drafted. Like Jeff Okudah is like that guy now, and I don't think Kinlaw has to be that guy right away. But I think his selection at 14 with that deep Niners team, I think will help his development more than people I think will realize.
Only time will really tell. Well, he's on a very solid defensive line there with the Bosa, so he's not going to have to be number one. But we'll find out in a few years if it was a good pick or not. Another winner that I saw, just in general, the fans of the AFC West. There are going to be points on top of points scored out in that division in the upcoming years. You got the young talent, Patty Mahomes, Super Bowl champion, MVP, of course, and in that offense with Hill and Watkins, they're going to fly. Then you get I was going to say San Diego, excuse me. Los Angeles Chargers, they get their quarterback for the future. Justin Herbert, he's going to sling it out there to Keenan, Williams, Eckler. And then Denver got their quarterback last year. Drew Lock showed some promise down the stretch. And who do they take? Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be a weapon. And lastly, the Raiders, they take the other Alabama wide receiver, Ruggs, who can run like a 4.3 40. It's going to be exciting out in the West this year. I can't wait.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a fan of the Herbert pick. I know people say 6 is too high, but they need a quarterback. We saw like look at you said it yourself. That division's going to be high flying. They got to keep up in some way. And Tyrod Taylor is not that guy to get you that many points. So I like the Herbert pick. I also like their pick of Kenneth Murray at 23. He was a tank at Oklahoma, and that defense, as we know, has been inconsistent in the past. So yeah, I agree. The AFC West, the young studs going out to Vegas and Denver should be exciting. I don't think any of them even come close to Patty Mahomes and company, but I think it made it more competitive.
Yeah, the thing is, right now they're all chasing Mahomes and the Super Bowl champions, and I just found it interesting how teams aren't going to try and stack up on defense and try and beat them. They're going to try and use the offense to beat them.
Yeah, 100%. It's been you kind of have to. The only time I've seen Mahomes and company get pushed to the brink with points was that classic game with the Rams on Monday Night Football last year because they both put up 50. I mean, no one can really hang with those guys. So
You make a great point there, Sondik. I'm on the same page with you on that one. But some teams, even though it's only been one round, didn't have as great of a night. Give me one of your losers from the draft so far.
I think the Philadelphia Eagles lost this draft big time. The selection of Jalen Rieger that high, really? I know the receivers. It's a receiver heavy draft. I get it, but Rieger was the ninth best receiver and 53rd overall on the board. I know you can't always judge it by that. I just feel like there were better options, and the Eagles, God knows they've had receiver trouble with Aguilar and Jeffrey and the inconsistent health of Deshaun Jackson. So I get the receiver pick, but the selection is a head scratcher. Who lost for you?
Just to go on top of that, there were plenty of other receivers on the board still, like Ayuk, who went 5 picks later or whatever. He was still there. Jefferson was still there. There's a lot of good options, and I just don't understand that one either. But for me, the biggest head scratcher is the Giants. What are you doing? Andrew Thomas is the 3rd or 4th best lineman in the draft, and he goes number 4 overall, the first lineman off the board. I don't understand it. What's the philosophy? You have Isiah Simmons teed up right there, easy pick, and you don't take him. And it's not only that you don't take him, because I get it if they took Wirfs or Wills, one of the 2 best linemen in the draft, but to go and take Andrew Thomas at such a reach, number 4 in the draft, it doesn't make sense. They could have traded back and gotten him and gotten another pick in the 3rd round or something and helped themselves a little bit more. I don't understand it at all.
100%. Having Isaiah Simmons there, I was praying for him to drop to 9, and he obviously didn't. Having him I just think he was the best player available. Head scratcher to me. I think it's a too cute of a pick. I think they want to reach outside the box for someone that they think will be good in the future and has a higher ceiling than people imagine. I don't get it at all.
It's the Giants being the Giants. They haven't been good in the last 10 years. Missed the playoffs 7 of the last 8. It makes sense to me. But speaking of Isiah Simmons, I think he was one of the biggest steals of the draft, and it's kind of hard to be a steal going at number 8. He went to the Cardinals, for those of you who didn't pay attention, but you go 8 overall, and you're probably the best prospect outside of the top 2 or 3 there. So that's why I thought he should have gone at 4 to the Giants. And Dabo himself, his quote that they kept using last night, he's a beautiful football player. He does it all over the field, linebacker, safety, slot corner. He'll get to the quarterback. He's a good tackler, and his 40 time was phenomenal. He's a freak athlete. I just don't see how you don't take him. And you let him get all the way to 8. That's incredible.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the defensive end of the ball. Patrick Queen from LSU going to the Ravens at 28. That is very low. The Ravens go through stretches with their defense. Obviously, they haven't been the same since the Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed days, but they're building it back up. And Queen, he did only start 1 year at LSU. That's the gripe that people are having. But his best games were at the end of the year when they were beating teams like Clemson, like Oklahoma, like Alabama. So I think he got better with age as opposed to Kidlaw when we said that second half of the season wasn't as good. I love Patrick Queen at 28 to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson called him Ray Lewis Jr. for crying out loud. So all trust in Lamar. Give me Patrick Queen at 28.
I was going to bring up just what you said. Yeah, Ray Lewis Jr. That's what he called him. So that's some pretty big shoes to fill right there. For me, I guess if there's one other real steal that I saw, probably the Cowboys taking CeeDee Lamb at 17. And this is a different kind of steal in my opinion because it's more of addition by subtraction. The Eagles, you saw, like you said, you were really shocked. They're a loser for the wide receiver Rager that they took. That's because the Cowboys stole CeeDee Lamb from them. They were 2 picks in front of them, and Jerry Jones kind of used this as a block so the Eagles couldn't get their guy that they wanted.
The NFC East it's a bloodbath constantly, and we saw last year. I think no teams wanted to make the playoffs. I mean, eventually the Eagles got the spot, but yeah, the Cowboys, Jerry being Jerry, I think you're right. I set the Eagles back and forced them to reach and try and keep pace with the Cowboys, even though knowing how deep this draft is with receivers, they could have gotten guys in later rounds. So it's just an example of Jerry Jones attempting to play chess while the other teams play checkers.
We saw Jerry Jones. He was out on his yacht. He seemed to do a pretty good job out there. It must be nice to have, a boat you can just go and live on during this quarantine time. Back to the draft. Who's someone that was a little bit of a reach that definitely could have taken later, but why are they taking earlier? Who's a reach for you?
I think the Falcons taking AJ Terrell at their pick, another like the reaching with the corners in skill positions and making no sense. I think he's undersized. There's other guys available at the same position. He was ranked sixth in his position, and he went third behind Okudah, who obviously everyone knew would be a top 3 pick, and C.J. Henderson out of Florida going 9 to Jacksonville. I don't like the AJ Terrell pick for Atlanta at all. The defense has been terrible for a while, and you saw him get shredded by Burrow and LSU in the national championship. I don't. I think AJ Terrell he's undersized. I don't like it at this juncture. What about you? Who's a reach?
For me, it's another cornerback, Damon Arnett out of Ohio State going to the Raiders. My friend Mason won't like this, big Raiders fan, but he had a second round grade and he goes 19th overall. Some of the draft experts had him ranked as the 8th or ninth best cornerback behind a guy like Gladney, who ended up going in the late 20s, and behind Diggs or Fulton, who didn't even get drafted in the first round. He's 24 years old. It's a lot of mileage and age to be coming in with as a rookie. And he was never a number 1 cornerback. Okudah was always there. They always had someone better than him at cornerback, so we didn't really get to see him go up against the best of the best week in and week out. And part of his analysis was he lacks a little bit of speed and has short arms. That just doesn't sound like a 19th overall pick. I think the Raiders missed big on this one, and they're going to regret it.
Damon Arnett, I another that was a big head scratcher, and watching with my pops, he's a big Raiders fan. He looked at me, head scratcher. Too high. I think another example of Gruden thinking that his outside the box tactics will transfer. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm gonna stick with another defensive player from the Dolphins. Noah Ogani. Wow, can't believe I did that. He only picked up 1 pass in his last 2 seasons, and the Dolphins they already spent a ton of money on Byron Jones this offseason and have Xavier Howard. The Dolphins they ended the season on a good note. Getting too many guys at the same position, while it could breed competition, I think it's just too many guys in the secondary.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it was kind of surprising. But speaking of surprises, we've talked about steals, we've talked about winners, losers, everything. What was the biggest surprise of the night to you?
The Saints picking Cesar Ruiz at 26. I know they had inconsistent center play this year, but another good position, wrong time. They had 2 O-linemen go to the Pro Bowl already, and you can never have too much O-line help, especially for Drew Brees in his last dance next year, whenever football comes back. They also traded up last year in the second round to snag their center they have now. So, a head scratcher for me, trust in Sean Payton, I guess, but at that point, a center? I don't know. What about you?
It has to be the pick that everyone's talking about right now. Jordan Love, quarterback, Air Jordan coming in behind Aaron Rodgers. That shocked me, absolutely. Rodgers is already a guy who's been known for his personality, and he's not the nicest, friendliest, warmest guy out there. And then you bring in the guy that's going to back him up as a first-round draft pick. I mean, he's going to treat this guy like his family. And that means horribly. I just don't understand it at all. It's not going to make him happy. And Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show the other day and was talking about how he was hoping they'd draft a skill position player because the Packers haven't drafted a skill position player in probably the last 15 years. It's got to be frustrating to him. And the organization hasn't gotten him any help ever. The defense was great last year. And yeah, they've got Adams and Aaron Jones, but he doesn't have the full assets that he used to have when he had Jordy and Cobb and everyone running out there. And it's just, TikTok, like he's going to be gone soon. You're going to waste it and then you get this guy who won't be ready probably for a few years now. It's just going to piss him off, create more controversy. I don't understand it.
Yeah, there's a happy medium with building for the future for your quarterbacks. I mean, you've seen the Patriots really have no clue what they're doing as of now. I guess Jared Stidham's their quarterback. With Jared Stidham at quarterback, this could be a cold take. They will go 3-13. So I think it's planning for the future without seeming disrespectful. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers has a ton left in the tank. They got to the NFC Championship game before they did get slaughtered by the Niners. But I agree. Jordan Love at 26. I thought he was a shoo-in for the Patriots at their pick at 23. Obviously, they traded it, but the Packers have a ton of holes still. So building for the position that you have a Hall of Fame top 5 quarterback at still, well, he still has some left in the tank, something left to prove. Sorry, so I don't get it.
Like there's Fromm and Eason and Hurts, a lot of guys out there for the second and third, fourth round, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I really don't understand it.
Yeah, speaking of young talent in the NFL, we're going to switch gears. Class of 2020 number one prospect Jalen Green dropped a bombshell in the sports world last week, deciding to skip college basketball entirely and sign a contract with the NBA G League, receiving $500,000 in the process. Wow, 18. Crazy. Granty, what does this mean for the future of college basketball?
It's horrible, in my opinion. This is awful. And for college basketball, it means adapt or die. If you're taking the biggest recruit, most likely number one NBA draft pick, and you remove him from college, that's a problem. Other big names will start following. You're going to lose all the top recruits, and it's going to turn into a bunch of mid-major guys at the high major schools, and then guys who probably should be lower than mid-major and the mid-majors, and everything's going to take a step in the wrong direction. The quality is going to get lower. People will stop caring. People will stop watching. The revenue is going to go down. The NCAA is in huge trouble because of this. I hate the move. College game is such a great thing that we have. They have so much passion and energy. And March Madness is one of the greatest events of the year. It's concerning for me. What about you?
I don't know. I love college basketball, so this is gonna this. I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but from a personal standpoint, I want that young man to get his bag. I think that the rest of the guys trying to make it in the league should as well. 1 year of college doesn't do anything for guys that are that good. Yeah, Zion wasn't the number one recruit going in. He was number two, and they went number one. And RJ Barrett was number one going into Duke and went third. So I don't know. The college game, if guys think they need it, they need it. And if they make the jump too quick, then it's their fault. I I think the rule should obviously be changed. I think they should either let the one and done rule have it come abolished. Sorry, let guys go right from high school to the league because there are guys that are ready. Jalen Green is ready to play in the NBA. That is known. Or have guys to be able to market off their image at college. That way, they get the incentive back, so it's an equal playing field. Because think about how much money and hype and attention that Duke team of Zion and RJ and Reddish. Like, think about how much attention they brought to the school and money and sponsorship. So I totally get the move from a college basketball fan standpoint. Yeah, it's not good for the game because this guy would have been so exciting to watch. There's people thought he was a shoe-in for Auburn or wherever. So from a Jalen Green perspective, I love it. From a college basketball perspective, it is slightly concerning.
I disagree with you. I think that going straight from the high school to the NBA it's not. Yes, like you said, personal move. It's good. You get your money, this and that. I just don't think most kids, there's the very few exceptions. There's the LeBrons of the world who can do it. But if kids are trying to do that, you need that extra year to grow mentally, to strengthen up physically, to understand what it's like to have basketball or any sport as a job rather than just something you love doing. It's a full-time commitment. And I think college is a great step for that, where it gives you a peek inside of what it's like to have it be a full commitment before it really becomes that super serious job where you're making millions, every eye's on you, and the pressure's never been higher. But I'm not totally against what you're saying. I agree with the fact that the NCAA should change it so that players can profit from their likeness. That's what I'm saying when I say adapt or die. that fixes this whole situation, because if players in the NCAA can get paid, less incentive to go to the G League.
Yeah, and the college basketball game is so interesting because I was thinking about this earlier in the week. There are so many guys in college basketball that, like the top guys, they just don't win in college. So, like Ben Simmons at LSU, like that team didn't even sniff 500. Anthony Edwards in Georgia, they were a bubble team. I mean, but Wiseman before he left, obviously. Memphis, like they without him, so it's a little that situation's not as cut and dry. But I don't know, man. There's something about playing an extra year in the G League against guys that pros that you're eventually going to play. So you're already have a year under your belt of guys that whether will be in the league eventually or were good enough to play professional basketball at all. So it's similar along the lines of the LaMelo Ball route. Obviously, Jalen Green didn't move to Lithuania and purchase his team. That's the biggest big baller move I've ever seen. So I think college basketball will be fine eventually. They're gonna have to adapt, or else this will keep happening, like you said. But I don't know. I think guys that are ready to do it, they have to be they're at an age where they can decide what's best for their future, and they're while winning at college and putting up all the stats would be beneficial. I don't know how much it actually helps guys draft stock.
We're going to find out here. Well, I'm curious to see how the move will affect Jaylen Green's draft stock, because before, everyone's saying he's going to go number one. If he goes top three still, yeah. But if he falls and goes 10th or something, people are going to talk and say this is a red flag. And I also hate it because I can't name two teams in the G League. I'm not going to get to see him on TV at all this year. I'm personally not going to get any exposure to him now. When I would have gotten a full year of him at Auburn, I would have watched him 10 or 12 times. I would have seen him in the tournament. It would have been awesome. And then just from a logistical standpoint, I don't like it either, because G League teams are assigned to NBA teams for the most part, where you can bring guys up and down from the G League. So for him to be within an organization already, basically, without getting drafted, that team gets an unfair advantage and gets to groom him and gets to try to persuade them that they want to come play for them one day. Even if they don't draft them, they could say, hey, you came here for G League. We'd love to have you back after your rookie contract's up. And they just get like extra evaluation on that player a whole year. It's a little messy for me.
It would be quite interesting to see because there are guys on G League rosters that are two-way, but now there's guys like Jalen Green, and I think Isaiah Todd also decommitted from Michigan and went this route. So quite quickly you can see how the snowballing effect of one of the best guy, and then there's more and more top recruits. But I think it would be well known the difference between the players. It would just be interesting because like I'm thinking of the minors in baseball. There are so many guys at different stages of their career, like young gun prospects who obviously it's different because they get drafted to the team. So I know the process is different, but it's an interesting melting pot of guys that want to get to the G League and have been there for years, and guys like Jalen Green. So I think it's a beneficial process for both because teams and guys that want to win G League games have Jalen Green and Isaiah Todd and these players now so they can win, even though they're smaller scale, not winning NBA games, obviously. But also the young guys can learn from the older guys. There's not any besides Perry Ellis in Kansas a couple years ago. Not many 30-year-olds in the college game. So I think as a building block, I think it would be confusing at first, but I think ultimately beneficial for both.
I it just it takes roster spots away from guys who are competing for their lives, basically, at that point, where you can still go to college and play there. Some of those guys that you're taking spots away from, that could be the last bit of basketball they ever play because you take their spot. And I get that there's older players and stuff like that there, but you're not going to find better coaches than guys like Roy Williams, Krzyzewski, Calipari. Those guys they're just as equipped to get you ready for the NBA as some of those guys in the G League.
100%. And I don't mean to encourage every top recruit to go be pro because you're right, college basketball would be quite sad to watch. But I think giving guys the option is a beautiful thing because it's sink or swim for him at this point. And if he does well and he gets his draft stock and it stays in the top three, who knows, maybe number one next year, then he can be happy with that. it's sink or swim, and I think having the option there rather than restricting guys to all do one path when a lot of guys go to college and it's not a good fit, and then they stay around the transfer portal, and before you know it, their names aren't talked about as much. So it's to each his own, absolutely. But Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, Bill Self, Izzo, those guys will be able to mold NBA stars even with this. I'm not too worried.
It's There's a lot going on right now at the college game. They're looking at the whole transfer portal thing too. It sounds like people are going to be able to play without having to sit out a year, which that just brings up more red flags because credits don't transfer. Kids won't be graduating as much. It's a whole headache now. NCAA really has to take a look in the mirror and decide what they want to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. The NCAA has been broken for a while. The movement to pay the players has been very prominent, as we've seen. And it's gonna be put up or shut up, especially because next year hopefully we get a college basketball season. Hopefully we get March Madness because there's people are gonna be so excited and dying for college basketball. For it to not be at its peak would be quite a shame. The transfer rule and eligibility and those rules. And yeah, NCAA, you're right. I 100% agree with you. They have to figure it out, or else there will be even more confusion and even more backlash from athletes, students, parents, and just fans in general.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. That's how it has to be. But we'll stick with basketball to wrap it up here. Everyone watched, over 6 million people, The Last Dance, episodes 1 and 2 last Sunday. What's your thoughts? What was your initial impression of this documentary?
So obviously, it should have been a sign for all 6 million people that Michael Jordan is the best player to ever touch a basketball. You saw, I think his impact off the court was nuts to me because I knew how good he was with the 6-0, averaging 30 for his career. All regardless of the career accomplishments, the guy was getting followed on the streets of Paris, man. Uh, he it just showed his impact globally, how he inspired your favorite player and your parents' favorite players. He was your parents' favorite players, and I think his impact. This documentary is attempting to give it justice to people that haven't watched it, because people are quick to deem LeBron the GOAT, and I see the argument. I mean, what he does on a night in and night out basis is remarkable, and his global impact is up there as well. But I think it should be. I think it should, and if it didn't already, should decrease the recency bias people have, because Michael Jordan, cultural global phenomenon during his time, and it came at a perfect time as we long for sports.
The first thing, yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I don't want to brush past that. The global reach that he really brought to the NBA was, I never knew it was that much. Like you said, went to Paris, swarms of people, everyone's paying attention to him, they're chanting his name. That was crazy. But for me, the thing that I took away, Jerry Krause sucks. Jerry Krause is the worst. He drove Phil Jackson away last year. He didn't want to bring Pippen back. He's making Pippen look like the bad guy in all of this. You saw the story of Pippen like cursing him out on the bus. It's just, yes, he brought those teams together, but he says that players and coaches don't win championships, organizations do. That's just a stab at everyone. How can you think that's going to come off well? And it's just, he sucked.
This statement really made no sense to me because I'm going to use LeBron as an example again. Like the Cleveland's owner area going at it with LeBron. Without LeBron, Cleveland is the most irrelevant franchise I think ever. I mean, there was Jordan hitting the Craig Elo shot, and those teams in the '80s where the Cavs were decent, but pl- players represent organizations, but the players win the damn titles. Uh, that made no sense. The Scottie Pippen not getting paid, 122nd in the league, sixth on his team behind Luke Longley. That it was blasphemous. I'll use that word. Scottie Pippen not getting paid that much. We saw his impact with the Bulls. Michael Jordan didn't win anything before Scottie Pippen got there. Sure, it wasn't his fault, and he put up ridiculous numbers at 63-point game against the Celtics. But Scottie Pippen's value, and we're going to continue to see in the upcoming weeks because this documentary is just going to get better and better. But Scottie Pippen, while Jerry Krause did suck, Scottie Pippen was so good.
Pippen's debatably one of the 50 greatest players of all time. And like you said, he's the sixth highest paid player on his team. It's insane. But For those of us who know the Bulls, we love and appreciate Scotty very much for what he did. Next week, or well, this week, we're getting into Rodman and the Bad Boy Pistons. What are you looking forward to about that?
I'm just excited to see people see. I'm excited for people to watch like how physical the game was back in the day. Because people, there's always that picture of Jordan being guarded by some unathletic guard, and these like people that Jordan had to face. But the Pistons would just shove guys to the ground. Like those guys, they didn't care. Bill Laimbeer didn't care. Dennis Rodman didn't care. So I think people will actually get to see how good that Pistons team was and how many Hall of Famers that they had. I mean, Isiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Adrian Dantley. Those Pistons team, yes, Jordan lost in the first round. So that for everyone that thinks he's not the best ever, use that against him. Let's see if let's it will give a good indication of how physical those teams were and how good they were because they won titles and they were beating the Lakers in the late '80s. It will show how good they were and how tough it was for Jordan to beat them.
Everyone has their opinion. Jordan played against plumbers and mailmen and this and that, and oh, I could score in the 80s and 90s. No, this week's going to show you that you wouldn't last more than a few games in the 80s and 90s because of just how physical and hard fought they played. They had this whole thing called Jordan rules where they wouldn't let him get a shot up and they would make sure his butt ended up on the hardwood. And then you're going to see them get into a bunch of fights. Laimbeer was a feisty player. You're going to see a lot of fists thrown in the next week or two. It's going to be awesome. Really excited for it. And we'll end with this one question. What was the best part of episode 1 and 2? Best part.
I love that Jordan and Pippen like just clowning Jerry Krause because it guys nowadays the players have all the power against the executives, so they're always clowning their executives. But back then it wasn't happening as much, so it showed that Jordan and his teammates were in charge of that team, and they ran the ship. What about you?
Yeah, they had no respect for that man towards the end. For me, the best part, it's very small moment, probably not appreciated by many. It's when MJ comes zooming in his car, pulls into the parking lot, opens the door, and he just leaves his car there. He just leaves his car in the middle of the parking lot, doors open, and basically saying, "Who's going to touch my car? I'm Michael Jordan. No one's going to do this." And he just left it there for the whole practice or wherever they were doing. I just thought that was incredible.
Yeah, it was very Creed Bratton-esque the way he left his car. Michael Jordan just exuded power, exuded confidence, and had that killer mentality that all the greats have, and it was on display throughout the whole doc. And I'm just so hyped for the next couple weeks to see more of it.
Super pumped for the upcoming. We have 4 more weeks of this. We're going to learn a lot more. And as a Bulls fan, I never put it all together. I've heard all the bits and pieces. Oh, Jordan hit the shot over the Jazz to win the finals, 6-0, 63 against the Celtics in the playoffs. But now I really get to understand what it was all about and appreciate it as the Bulls fan I am, which is awesome.
Yeah, I can't even imagine Michael Jordan playing for my favorite team. That must be awesome to see. Hopefully the Bulls get back there eventually, and I think it just shows a reminder of the impact he had on that franchise and the whole league.
My dad tells me stories of, oh, I was sitting here watching this game and I remember being at this house when he hit this shot, and I'm just so jealous that he got to experience all of that. But we're out of time for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Stay home, wash your hands, practice social distancing. It will get better. As always, folks, let's ride.